The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this scene. You're sitting at a table, sharing a meal with your closest friends. The atmosphere is warm, the conversation flows, and everything feels normal. But underneath the surface, something is brewing. An undercurrent of tension and uncertainty. You sense that things are about to change forever. This is how the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, begins. It's a moment of peace on the verge of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, hope. Today we're diving deep into the themes of this chapter: faith, betrayal, love, and forgiveness. These are universal experiences, and as we explore the final hours of Jesus' earthly ministry, we'll discover powerful lessons that can guide us through our own moments of challenge and doubt. Jesus foretells his sacrifice, a lesson in purpose. Now, at the beginning of the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, Jesus gathers his disciples and tells them that the Passover is just 2 days away, and during it, he will be betrayed and crucified. Now, imagine the weight of this moment. Jesus, knowing the immense suffering he will face, is fully aware that his time is coming to an end. Yet, he speaks of it calmly and with certainty. He is not afraid of what lies ahead because he knows it's part of God's plan for the salvation of humanity. Now, what can we take from this? Life will present us with challenges often unexpected and sometimes deeply painful. But just as Jesus did, we can face these moments with the understanding that there is purpose in our struggles. Now, Jesus' willingness to walk toward the cross teaches us that sometimes our greatest calling may lead us through our greatest difficulty. There's a greater story unfolding that we might not always see. You see, just like Jesus, we can trust that our pain, our sacrifice, and our perseverance will serve a higher purpose in God's plan. The anointing at Bethany, a lesson in extravagant love and sacrifice. Now, in the next scene, we find Jesus in Bethany at the home of Simon the leper. While they are reclining at the table, a woman approaches with an alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. She breaks the jar and pours the perfume over Jesus' head. Now, this was not just any perfume. It was costly, likely representing a significant portion of her wealth. The disciples, seeing this act, are quick to criticize. They ask, "Why this waste? This perfume could have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor." But Jesus responds in a way that surprises them. He tells them that the woman has done a beautiful thing and that she has anointed his body for burial. He honors her act of love and says that wherever the gospel is preached, what she has done will be remembered. Now, this part of the chapter teaches us about the beauty of extravagant love and sacrifice. The woman gave something precious without hesitation, without counting the cost. She didn't care about the opinions of others. Her focus was solely on honoring Jesus. In our lives, we're often called to give in ways that may not make sense to those around us, whether it's our time, our resources, or our love. But true sacrifice is often costly. And God sees our hearts, and when we offer our best to Him, it's never wasted. Like the woman with the perfume, our acts of love and service will be remembered and valued by God. Judas's betrayal, a lesson in trust and unconditional forgiveness. Now, in a shocking turn of events, we read that one of Jesus' closest disciples, Judas Iscariot, secretly goes to the chief priests and agrees to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. The betrayal is heartbreaking because Judas had walked with Jesus for years, witnessing his miracles and teachings. Yet, for a small sum of money, Judas is willing to hand over the one who called him a friend. Now, what's even more astonishing is how Jesus responds. During the Last Supper, Jesus openly acknowledges that one of the disciples will betray him, but he doesn't stop Judas from acting on his plan. Instead, he extends love and grace, even sharing bread with Judas, the very symbol of fellowship. And what does this teach us? It teaches us that although betrayal is one of the deepest wounds we can experience, it cuts to the core of our trust and leaves us feeling vulnerable. Yet, Jesus shows us the unfathomable example of forgiveness. He didn't retaliate or seek revenge. Instead, he continued to love Judas, even knowing what was to come. This is a powerful reminder that forgiveness isn't about excusing someone's behavior, but about freeing our hearts from bitterness. If Jesus can forgive his betrayer, we too can find the strength to forgive those who hurt us, even when it's difficult. Peter's denial, a lesson in humility, failure, and redemption. So next we turn our attention to Peter, who is often seen as one of the most passionate and loyal disciples. In this chapter, Peter boldly declares that even if everyone else abandons Jesus, he will never do so. Jesus, however, predicts that Peter will deny him 3 times before the rooster crows. When Jesus is arrested and taken away, Peter follows at a distance, fearful of being associated with him. As Jesus has foretold, Peter is confronted 3 times by people who recognize him as a follower of Christ, and each time, Peter denies knowing Jesus. After the 3rd denial, the rooster crows, and Peter is struck with the weight of his failure. He weeps bitterly. Now, this is a profound lesson in humility and redemption. Peter's denial shows us that even the most well-intentioned among us can fail. But Peter's story doesn't end with failure. Later in the gospel, we see that Jesus forgives and restores him. Peter goes on to become one of the foundational leaders of the early church. This is a message of hope for all of us. When we fall, when we make mistakes, God's grace is always there to lift us up. Our failures don't define us. What matters is how we respond to them. And like Peter, we can find redemption in God's love and forgiveness too. The Garden of Gethsemane, the lesson in surrendering and trust. Finally, we have come to one of the most emotionally charged moments in the chapter. Jesus is at the Garden of Gethsemane, where he prays alone, deeply distressed, knowing that his crucifixion is near. He falls to the ground and prays, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." This is the ultimate act of surrender. Jesus, fully human, felt the weight of his impending suffering. He didn't want to face the pain of the cross, but he was willing to trust God's will above his own desires. In this moment, Jesus teaches us the power of surrender. Sometimes we face circumstances that we don't understand, times when we want to escape the pain, the uncertainty, or the difficulty. But like Jesus, we can find peace in surrendering to God's will, knowing that he sees the bigger picture and has a plan for our lives. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, it's rich with profound lessons about love, sacrifice, betrayal, forgiveness, and surrender. It challenges us to live with purpose, to give extravagantly, to forgive even when it hurts, and to trust God's plan especially when we don't understand it. So, as you leave here today, I encourage you to reflect on these lessons. Think about the moments in your own life when you've felt betrayed, where you've failed or where you've struggled to trust God. And remember, Jesus faced all of these things, and yet he chose love. He chose to forgive, and he chose to surrender. So what can you choose today? Can you choose to offer your best to God even when others don't understand? Can you choose to forgive those who have hurt you? Can you choose to trust God's plan even when it leads you through difficult paths? Let these lessons of the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, guide you as you walk through your own journey of faith, knowing that no matter what comes, God's love never fails. And as you go, remember, in every trial there's a lesson, and in every lesson there is love. May these truths inspire you to live boldly, love deeply, and trust fully in the God who walks with you every step of the way. Thank you. Tomorrow we'll be back for chapter 27.